You're watching the NASCAR Amino Network.
Going around in circles again. Going around in circles again. Going around and battles of law are back in the seat. Purpose and will versus modern machine. Passing the slow, defeating the weak. All with the tar on the street and the weight on my feet. The sweat on my face. Wanting first place more than you can.
Welcome everybody to the NASCAR Amino Racehub here. Once again on NASCAR Amino Network, we are currently working on just trying to get everything else set up. The cars are already on the field. They're trying to get everything settled in for the driver intros that are going to be taking place here later on into the talking points. But right now, I am your host, Emmett Freeman, who will be the main commentator on the booth whenever we get done with the race up here, followed by Cater Johns.
Hey man, how's it going?
And Connor Campos.
Well, hello everyone.
All right, of course, this is a more audio-tory experience. Of course, these lovely, fine gentlemen cannot join me in an actual studio, but this virtual studio here will just have to make do. Anyways, boys, the current storylines here for the NASCAR Amino Fana Grand National Series is top-notch here today. Right now, Jared Holmes is joining the series for his own team, Main Event Enterprises, after the race-off that has just taken place, as, of course, plenty of people know, as a sort of open secret. Sidney Allen gains Fireball Whiskey as his primary instead of Taco Bell. Justin Newman signs to be in Porter Robinson Racing and for the number 6 Azur Lane Chevrolet. And some other notable stuff like Cyberstorm Racing starting off hot here early on. Leland Fife joining Allen Motors. And some of the teams to look out for. Some other stuff that we will be able to talk about. But first, let's try and talk about Jared Holmes, the alleged king back then of the MLNCS, starting his own team after the race-off. Cater, what is your take on this?
Honestly, I think Jared's he's a big words guy. He doesn't actually do the things he always threatens. I think he's a big pretender. We've seen him in this ownership role before while being a driver, and honestly, I don't see it going too far, but you never know. He's a man of words, like I said, but sometimes the results don't translate to what he actually says. He's quite something else.
All right. And also, Connor Campos, you have the floor here. What are your thoughts on this big news happening for the Fana Grand National Series with Jared Holmes?
It's a very interesting story to say the least. Jared Holmes is someone who really thrives on himself at being the best driver. At any cost, in any way, he'll do it just to make himself feel happy. But he does have the talent to easily challenge anyone for a race win. But he hasn't been in a car in almost a few years, so this is definitely going to take some major time to get back into form, but I believe Jared Holmes will be a major contender once he gets all the rust off of him, and he'll be ready for a championship fight when it comes to that point of the season.
All right. To me, I believe that Jared Holmes is of course pretty big on himself. He always likes to sell himself big as this big fighter guy, but right now, he is, like with what Connor said, he is very rusty going into this, and plus it's a brand new car, new Ford Mustang coming in just from the hot off the factory. They had a good fair amount of time to prepare while everything else was getting set from the media to even getting this virtual studio all set up. But he has a lot on his plate. This is the first race that he is going to do and the first points paying race in the season. So a lot of race rust that will be having to shake off, especially with these Grand National cars, which are a lot different from the trucks that he's also used to, the dirt cars he's used to, and the cup cars he's used to as well. Anyways, going on, Sidney Allen gains Fireball Whiskey as his primary, replacing Taco Bell, which is the newest thing that he came up in. According to Brandon, there was some contract disputes going on, and sort of Taco Bell not really wanting to pay up as much as Fireball Whiskey was. It seemed more like a money thing than really anything regarding Taco Bell, where they were not willing to pay or step over the price of what Fireball Whiskey had. But right now, brand new primary sponsor for this team, especially with Sidney Allen, who is well known for his Taco Bell cars. Cater, what are your thoughts on this?
Well, I was kind of shocked by this when I initially heard this headline. I mean, Sidney Allen's been partnered with Taco Bell for so long as a hood sponsor, and it was definitely shocking to hear that he's no longer going to have that as his primary. But nonetheless, Fireball Whiskey hopping on board, I think that'll be good for Sidney Allen. Sounds like they're getting paid more than what Taco Bell would have given them, and I mean, when you sink money into a race team, you need as much sponsorship as you can get, and the most amount of money you can grab is what you need to go with, and Fireball Whiskey just had the better offer.
All right, and Connor, what are your thoughts on this primary sponsor news?
Honestly, before the show even started, I had no idea what Fireball Whiskey was until I got a little more notified on it before the show even started. But this is definitely a very interesting change, to say the least, because Taco Bell is usually a more well-known sponsor with Sidney Allen, and it's kind of shocking that he won't have it this year. But like Cater said, they paid up more than Taco Bell was willing to do. But this will definitely be an intriguing partnership, to say the least. But I feel like Sidney can at least give them some recognition when the season kicks off. And I feel like Daytona could be a great way to showcase their employment to this series.
All right. To me, this is a big news, especially whenever you've seen plenty of Taco Bell cars coming off of Sidney Allen's lot. But with this type of news, I think, according to Brandon, it could potentially bring a lot more confidence to the sport. And it could definitely bring a lot more confidence to Allen Motors as an organization, just from that alone, where they were getting high dollar deals from Fireball Whiskey instead of the usual amount they would get from Taco Bell. Anyways, going on and continuing on, Justin Newman signing to Porter Robinson Racing in the number 6 Azure Lane Chevrolet. He's usually ran Fords before instead of a Chevy, mainly with the number 6. Cater, what are your thoughts about this type of signing with that type of sponsorship for Justin Newman?
I mean, it's pretty big for Justin Newman. I mean, I'm what's the right phrase here? Justin Newman hasn't been the most stellar driver from what I've seen from him rising up through the ranks, but like I said, referring to like what Sidney Allen and their a partnership over there, Justin Newman is pretty good for his race team, and signing on to be with Porter Robinson as well. And he gets to drive the number 6 as well. So I mean, I think that's going to give him an extra motivation boost when he tries to idolize his, faithful, humble big boy Ryan Newman. I think Justin Newman, you'll see some good things from him this weekend. Not anything spectacular from the season, but definitely look out for him to surprise here and there.
All right, and once again, before we move to Connor for his opinions on this, Porter Robinson Racing, fresh off the presses of being a new race team, just like Main Event Enterprises. Connor, since it's a brand new race team showing up here with Lindsey Dietz and Justin Newman, what do you think they would be able to accomplish here if they get this race at Daytona squared away?
If they kick this season off running well, then they might have a chance to showcase a lot more potential than people might be expecting. But having less time to prepare for the season, especially this late into the off season, before the season even starts, will definitely bring a lot of rust towards them. But having a guy like Justin Newman can really, really help them, because Justin Newman is someone who can easily help adjust a car very easily, and he might not be able to get a top 10 on multiple occasions, but he can easily keep a car out of trouble most of the time. Having a guy like Justin Newman will definitely help them a lot. And if Lindsey and Justin Newman can get this ball rolling straight, then I think they might be a possible solid team at best.
All right. To me, Justin Newman signing with a Chevy team has been a little shocking, to say the least, especially seeing the 6 car on a Chevy body instead of the usual Fords we've seen around track every other time. But I believe that with this brand new race team and this brand new, or not brand new driver, but a well-known driver like Justin Newman, I have the feeling that Porter Robinson Racing could get a good rolling start here if they do well at Daytona. Anyways, going and continuing on, Cyberstorm Racing themselves with team owner and driver Alan Mooch, they've been starting off hot, winning the race-off main event here in the starting of the season, and they've been starting good. They have the pole for Daytona itself, and they've been show speed at the test here and there, but they're still trying to get their groundwork in the MLNCS, especially after that Pocono race. Carter, what do you not Carter? Who's Carter? Carter isn't trying to still get his car squared away. Carter is not here. Cater is here. Uh, Cyberstorm, what are your thoughts on Cyberstorm starting off hot in the Grand National division, but is not really getting it too much done in the Cup Series?
Well, you brought it up that winning the race-offs with Alan Mooch was good for the race team, and they got the pole as well. I think momentum is key. I mean, you hear it in not just this series, obviously, but literally every racing series. Once you got the confidence, motivation that you can get it done in the equipment you're given, it's a really good sign of things to come. And momentum is not tangible. It's an intangible thing that drivers have. And it's just that boost of confidence, the feeling that you can get the job done. And sometimes that's all you need to perform. And I feel like Cyberstorm is going to be a threat when it comes to starting out here in the series. You mentioned how they don't have as much success in the Cup Series, but I think, sometimes it doesn't have to come at the highest level. Sometimes it just has to stem from somewhere. And I think this series is a great place for Cyberstorm to find great amounts of success compared to the other teams.
All right. And with Connor, Cyberstorm, like I've said before, is getting off to a wonderful start here in the Grand National Series, but is still trying to find their footwork here in the Cup Series, or down in the Cup, or up in the Cup Series, I guess you would say. But to be honest, what are your biggest worries about Cyberstorm Racing with this much skill and this much heat going in with such a fast and hot start, winning the race off, being the top tests in the Daytona test sessions? What do you think could go wrong, or do you believe that they could keep riding this momentum of being the best that they have been in the Grand National Series?
One thing that they really need to prevent themselves from doing is beating themselves, because having high expectations can either motivate someone to be at their top, or they can easily destroy someone's confidence, and they'll easily be looked at as a misconcepted driver or team, depending on how they do after this race weekend. But keeping the momentum is definitely a must for Cyberstorm Motorsports. This is a team that has definitely not had a great history in the Cup Series, but in the lower series, they're starting off hot, and that's really what can help bring a lot of confidence for everyone. And if they can at least keep this up early on, especially here at Daytona and from here on out, this can easily be a potential championship caliber team. But the only thing that really stops them is themselves. So they really have to prevent themselves from proving their expectations to being wrong, or at least trying to excel at them at best as possible.
Yeah, Cyberstorm Racing is always known to be a little bit of a self-sabotage at times whenever things don't really go their way at points, but after, say, a couple of good races, I'm sure they'd be able to start off with a lot more heat up towards the Cup Series. But right now, here in the Grand National Division, they are on fire with everything that they have done with both Daytona and the race-off event that we have taken place during the Epic Thick League Day. But anyways, going about that, Leland Fife joining Allen Motors to pilot the number 53 Credit One Bank Mercury Cougar. They have signed a big deal outside of the Allen family. Leland Fife has shown a pretty fair amount of skill going into this. Cater Johns, do you believe that Leland Fife could be a top success for the Allen Motors brand?
Well, it's definitely going to be very interesting because, like, when you're invited to a family team, it's hard to get an invitation from someone that like you don't have that interpersonal connection with. And the fact that Leland was invited tells me that the Allen family sees something in Leland that's special, and they want to work with him for years to come. But you've got to prove yourself when you are put in that position. And I think Leland has a good shot at doing just that. I mean, he's looked good so far. He's got this big deal with Credit One Bank, and he's driving the good old Cougar. You don't see much Cougars, in racing series, but nonetheless, Leland, I'm expecting he'll do pretty well with Allen Motors. I'm curious how well they're going to gel, he and the team, but we'll just have to wait and see. I'm very intrigued to see how this driver team pairing goes.
Yeah, you always can never be too surprised to see, especially with a Mercury Cougar like this one. Cougars aren't really known for racing. They're more dating the younger folk in this generation of age. But outside of that, they have been very fast race cars. I believe Allen Motors could potentially be able to get this done. But anyways, Connor, what is your belief that if Leland could get it done with Allen Motors, who have shown in other series that they have been a little behind at times with speed and the necessary equipment? Do you believe that with this money that they're getting from Credit One Bank and also the skill they have from Leland Fife, do you believe this family-owned business could go from just a mid to backpack field filler to a big star in the Grand National Series?
I can definitely see Allen Motors exceeding expectations to a big way to at least take a huge step up the ladder in this series. And having a guy like Leland Fife is definitely a very interesting choice for the Allen family because they have mostly been with each other rather than having someone else join the team. And having someone like Leland is definitely going to be an interesting choice to say the least. Leland is definitely a guy who has a lot of potential in anything he drives in, but he never has had that great opportunity to showcase his talent on a big stage. And having the support from Allen Motors and his sponsor Credit One Bank is definitely going to show the world that Leland Fife can be a good driver in this league. But if he can at least exceed expectations to a certain point, he can easily help elevate Allen Motors into a potential solid or potential championship team. So I feel like this team has a lot of room to improve, and they have that opportunity with Leland Fife.
Yeah, and to me, I believe full confidence with Leland Fife to be able to elevate Allen Motors from, of course, where they are now to about up to a good high pack to mid to high field race car driver to a potential winning race car driver. Of course, 32 drivers are going to fill in this field, and 32 drivers have a shot at winning at the biggest stage of them all. But moving on, moving on. Right now, we are going to get into the teens to look out for, sponsored by Monster Energy, the top leading energy brand for the Coca-Cola Company, but of course, the top leading brand in motorsports. Anyways, teams to look out for me right now is Cyberstorm Racing. They have top testing with Ash Ellerton. They start Daytona in the pole with Alex Murillo, who is also the race-off winner. He fought hard in the entire race, came up from the first heat, came off strong, dominated the second, the A main event. He fought as much as he could, and on the final caution, it was the deciding factor in all of it. But Cater Johns, I want to know, what team do you think should a lot of the drivers be able to look out for in your own eyes?
Well, I mean, I don't have much to add to that because I agree with a lot with what you said. I don't think there's really any other team that pops out to my eye when you compare it to Cyberstorm Racing, because they have gotten off to such a strong start, such a hot start with Mooch, with the pole sitter, and with all these other guys on the team. I think it's gonna be really difficult. They got Ash Ellington, Alex Morial, right? He's on the team, something like that. I'm expecting big things from Cyberstorm. I don't know what other teams might be able to compete, but I mean it's gonna be very difficult. I know that, to knock Cyberstorm off their momentum, their big wave of momentum right now.
And of course, Connor Campos, I believe you have some eye on a certain team, but I want to know, and the fans want to know, what team do you think the other teams should look out for during this Daytona race? Who do you believe has that elevation change?
If I would go to a track, especially at Daytona, with super speedway racing at its best, I would have to go with Brink. That's a team that easily adapts to super speedway racing at the best out of any other team. Even though they haven't really been showing that strong speed against Cyberstorm, but they have the potential to easily challenge them in a full-on pack race. And if Brink can easily team up all together, they can easily take down Cyberstorm so easily that they could possibly dominate this race from start to finish. But it's easily going to depend on if they can easily find each other, and if Caden Bishop has that opportunity to easily get into the picture, because he'll easily find a way if he gets that opportunity to sneak by someone.
I will add one more thing. Remember, Paul Donlin is very good at Daytona. He's been relatively quiet for Cyberstorm. I think he has yet to contribute his share in the amount of success Cyberstorm has had, the amount of speed they've had so far this weekend.
Another team that I could definitely try and look out for, which has been very, very dangerous, of course, and with how hard they have fought to get this race car to the P2 spot on the outside pole. I would say Marinelli Racing Enterprises, especially with Dylan Jones. Ethan O'Connor, of course, had a pretty bad flip going into the race-off main event, which caused the final caution. But Dylan Jones held his ground as much as he could and is starting P2 at Daytona. He is a top star within the team outside of Caleb Marinelli himself. But to me, I believe he could potentially start to fall off here if he's not careful with where his line position's in. Like, Cater, I want you to give your opinion on this. Do you believe Dylan Jones could have the time and the patience to lead all of the laps here at Daytona, or do you think he's going to fall back?
Well, I think when you think of any driver, it's going to be hard to lead all the laps at Daytona, but I can see him leading the good majority. He's got some good teammates alongside him. He's got Zach Stern. He's always fast in any series he races. I think he's probably one of the best tutors you could have when it comes to racing with a teammate. And then you mentioned Ethan and Caleb as well. Caleb, the team owner there at Marinelli Racing Enterprises. That'll be interesting to see how he and Dylan gel. But I do think Dylan, with some patience, with some smart racing, don't make any stupid blocks, don't make any stupid side drafts, just keep the car in one piece. And even if you do fall back, remember you're still in it. Just try not to get sucked all the way back to outside the top 20, for example. I think if he's smart about it, he will do just fine.
All right. And Connor, I want your thoughts on this as well. Dylan Jones, once again, starting P2 at Daytona for this team. Do you believe he could hold on to that speed, or do you believe that he could potentially fall back if he is not careful with where his line is?
I feel like Dylan Jones has the potential to stay up front for most of this race. But you have to think of this race in two different ways. If you want to be a straight-on contender, you have to stay up front most of the race. But that causes a risk of possibly being collected in a crash. And there's another option with option 2 is that stay in the back until it's time to go, when all the chaos has either gone away or hasn't happened yet. But Dylan Jones definitely has all the speed to potentially be a potential not championship contender, but a race winner, or a guy who runs in the top 5 for most of this race. But that's going to mainly depend on how he manages this race, because Daytona has been known for being chaotic. And if he can at least stay within the picture throughout the entire race, I feel like Dylan Jones has that chance to possibly win this race.
I believe, without a shadow of a doubt, Dylan Jones could potentially, starting from P2, he has that shot at trying to take the lead early on, but I will mostly have to see where he goes during the entire race. I believe he will fall back if he is, because Dylan Jones is a little impatient at times. So whenever it comes to wanting to try and get to the lead now and constantly being up front, that impatience could lead to many obvious mistakes, which could just completely either damage the race car or damage his positioning on the track. And of course, a lot of things have been going on during the Daytona tests. A lot of people are confident with their cars now, but after the test, Quinn Yeager debut is going to debut for this race for Lindsay Dietz and Porter Robinson Racing. She just signed the paper and all of it's signed. The car has been wrapped up for a while. Couple weeks after Daytona testing and everything was still getting set up. But Cater Johns, I want you to understand one thing. This 47 Pepsi car, do you believe, especially with just how new this entire thing is, do you believe it has the ability to just from getting the startup to show itself as a true contender for Daytona?
I mean, I don't see why not, because at Daytona you got the draft to work with, and all it takes is a really good finish inside the top five. Heck, even the win, get yourself some big bucks for that race team, and just like that, you could start off strong if you use that money to your advantage, put together some good chassis on the race cars, and make yourself competitive. I think it's totally possible, especially when you're starting the season with Daytona. Anything's possible for that 47 team of Deets.
All right. And Connor Campos, of course, you would probably know a lot of new signups again in the Grand National Series, but Quinn Yeager himself signing up for this brand new race team in Porter Robinson Racing. Do you think he could potentially have that little more knowledge than Justin Newman to try and work a car, especially a brand new race car, fresh off the lot? Brand new wraps, brand new scheme itself, bringing in Pepsi and Applebee's to the car. Do you believe he could give that knowledge in any aspect to bring a championship to Daytona?
It's going to be a tough one for Quinn, but he does have some knowledge on how a race car works here at, especially here at Daytona, because he has shown speed at super speedways in the past. He's definitely a very interesting driver to say the least, but he does have that talent-wise to easily contend for possibly a top 10 or somewhat stealing a win away. And yes, he can possibly bring in some insight like Justin Newman can, but he needs to prevent himself from making mistakes on a constant basis because he's been known for having flashes of negativity when it comes to incidents on the racetrack. But I feel like Quinn has that opportunity to help this team in a big way, and if he can exit Daytona with some positive note behind him, then I feel like Porter Robinson can get a lot better with him on the team.
All right, and with me, Quinn Yeager, of course, brand new to the racetrack and brand new to the race team itself. I believe that he has some ability to try and work his way to the front, but it's going to be a slow grind, of course, with a brand new race team, and he is yet to test on this racetrack, so he's going to have a lot more issues on the race grooves than what I believe a lot of people are putting in. But anyways, going on about that, we are going to be looking at surprising drivers of the week. PQ guy and the number 75 Fox Nation Pontiac, the only Pontiac in the racing grid for the Grand National Series. He started second at testing, and he won the B main at the race off. He is, from what a lot of people have, especially with his reputation, he has been the most surprising driver of this current week. Cater, do you believe that he could be able to easily squeeze away and try and score a win here at Daytona, or do you believe that that B main race off victory was a small fluke?
I believe it was a total fluke. PQ guy is something else. Honestly, I don't know how he even did that, but coming to Daytona, I don't see him going anywhere.
Okay. And Connor Campos, do you believe that PQ guy with his B main racing win at which allowed him to go into the A main, but he could not get the victory there. Do you believe that B main racing or that B main race off win was a fluke, or do you believe he actually has the skills necessary to try and get a championship at Daytona?
That's a really, really tough case because PQ guys still has a lot of development to go on, but getting a win in a B main, especially at the non-points race, can help build someone's confidence up a lot. But it's definitely going to be a tall task for him. He doesn't really have much of that experience with him, especially here at these super speedways, because he can easily make a wrong decision and put himself in a horrible spot that could easily take him out. But if he can manage this race in a proper way, he can possibly try to sneak into the top 10 or end up trying to steal the win away from someone else in this race. But that's really going to depend on how he estimates this race as a whole, because you can't really go into this race full on and thinking that it's going to go the way that you want, because Daytona is usually known for being mentally challenged for anyone who steps in here.
To me, PQ guy, his race off win, I believe, to me, is a fluke. He's been a little bit of a character on and off the track. As he's been somewhat reprimanded sometimes by the Grand National advisors, but he's sort of calmed down for Daytona. He apparently is very confident with his race car, but we'll have to see as the laps wind down, see where his car will take him, especially with a brand new Pontiac just rolling off. But right now, we are going to go into the picks for the win, sponsored by Opry GX. Cater Johns, I want you to give your reasoning as to what certain driver you have your eye on that you believe could be able to outstand the harsh conditions that of Daytona, high stress, high racing, high speed, especially. Do you believe, who do you have as your pick to win?
Well, I alluded to this earlier. I could go with one of the more favorites. I could go with Zach, obviously. I could go with someone on Brink, like Tanner suggested, where like Caden, Tyler, Carter. I'm gonna go with Paul Dunlin. They'll stick with the Cyberstorm Racing train. They are riding such a big momentum wave right now, and like I said earlier, I think Paul Dunlin's still got to contribute his part, and I think Daytona's no better place to do it. So I expect big things from Paul. He's found so much success here on the plate tracks and other series past. And honestly, I'll be disappointed if Paul doesn't win.
All right. And one thing is always for sure, Paul Donlin has always been a surprising factor, especially having to replace Jackson Traeger due to the fact of he was kind of not very much active. He was actually kicked off the series for apparent drinking and driving, arrested for DUI in the I-65.
Oh, I
And
hate it when
according
that
to
happens.
the news broadcast, he was arrested on I-65 Speedway or I-65 Speedway Avenue with heavy amounts of alcohol, almost 2 times the illegal amount or the legal amount, and was also seen with oxycodone and benzene in his car, and apparently 2.5 grams of marijuana, but they
No.
didn't bust him for the marijuana. He was more busted for the oxycodone and the benzene. But anyways, Paul Donnelly coming in, he's replacing the Sunny D car. They did not change the wrap. They only changed one sticker on that car, and that is the Puma car on there. But right now, one thing is for sure, Connor Campos, if you have any of the 32 drivers in mind, which one of those drivers do you believe has enough guts, has enough courtesy to try and work their way up towards the front or stay in the front and hope to see the checkered flag?
One I usually keep on for anyone on a super speedway, I'm gonna go back to Brink and I'm gonna say Kane Bishop, because Kane Bishop has shown in the past that he can easily find his way to the front on a super speedway, and he has the team around him to easily get himself to the front and keep most of his team up there, because he's done it before and he could possibly do it again. And I feel like Kane Bishop has that speed in his car to potentially steal the win away from Cyberstorm Motorsports or anyone else in this league for no for no sake reason, but I feel like Kane Bishop can possibly steal this win away from the competition here at Daytona.
Very confident with your answer there, Connor. Do you have a little sneaking suspicion of if anybody has that shot at being able to win?
If I want to go with sneaky, I would have to go with Kylie Greeter because Kylie is quietly a very underrated super speedway racer, but doesn't have that luck when it matters. And if Kylie can think of a way to get to the front and stay up there with the likes of Kane Bishop and Cyberstorm, I feel like she has that opportunity to potentially steal the win away from the competition. But she has to play this race in the smartest way possible. She cannot force herself into a mistake. And if she does, it's going to hurt her bad. But if she can play this perfectly right, then I feel like Kylie Greeter could be in victory lane by the end of this race.
I got a I got a quiet pick too while Tanner's got his in. I got JD Throwback as a quiet pick, driving for a really good race team at Brink, but also always one of the quieter drivers you never see front running. Don't be surprised if out of nowhere he pulls one out of his butt.
One thing I've always been able to look at, and it's skill on the racetrack. One thing I've always been seeing is I will ride the Cyberstorm train as well. I do believe that Alex Moril could be able to whisk away the competition and truly show his skill as a race car driver, of course, being well known in the open wheel divisions, but being able to wheel a stock car as well as you can at the top center of racing could potentially get your name in lights a lot more faster than just being able to dominate the road courses. If I were to choose a sneaky pick, I would have to go with Brandon Allen in the number 11. He has been showing quite a lot of speed as well and quite a lot of skill at Daytona. He, according to some of the racer insiders, he, in a local test race at a what would be counted as a dirt version of Daytona, he has won a Daytona race in pure skill with pure beautiful fashion, but that was years ago. And it seems like the skill has sort of faded away, but I have a feeling he could be able to pull one out here. Anyways, going about it, even after all of that, Gator Johns, do you have anything else to add on to this? Are you excited for anything going on in the Grand National Series, especially as it's starting off?
Well, I'm excited to see how these cars race in the pack. That's always something you want to see, and you get to see it right away with the season opener at Daytona, how the cars handle with one another, how they work with each other in the draft, and how intense the wrecks are going to be. See, I love my wrecks. I'm Cater Jones. I love violence. So it's going to be really cool to see how these guys manage the race, and will they play nice with each other? Will they be very aggressive? I think it's going to be very intriguing to see.
Of course, I always try and question, are they going to be twitchy off the start? Are they going to start off with a really, really bad early on wreck, which will cause issues going into the rest of the race? But I truly have no idea how it's going to go. We don't even have the cars on the starting grid yet. We're getting ready to do driver intros soon. But Carter Campos, do you have any concerns, or are you just excited for the Fana Grand National Series just to get back up and running after a bit of a quiet run due to the just all of the media having to be run in?
I am very excited for this season. I've been hyped for this season to get started as soon as possible, and I'm glad it's coming as very, very soon. But there's one thing I'm very interested to see. I want to see who is truly the best and who will not who will show up when it matters most, and who's the ones that will pretend throughout the entire year. Because I really need to see who will be the true contenders and who will be a major pretender. Because those are the guys that I want to be focused on more. Because you gotta see how this picture paints, and Daytona will be a perfect opportunity to see who has that speed and who doesn't. And this is a great opportunity to see how these drivers will handle here at Daytona.
Well, of course, I always have to go up to the main commentator booth. I will be joined by someone soon. You'll be seeing them later on. But after all of this, this has been the NASCAR Amino Racehub. It has been with Carter Jones, Connor Campos, and your main commentator, Johns. I
Cater
apologize.
Johns.
I mistook you for another person. You look so similar. but it is also so different at the same time. I apologize.
Yeah, I get that a
Yeah,
lot.
it's a little weird. But anyways, thank you all for watching or listening to the NASCAR Amino Racehub. This has been Cater Johns, Connor Campos, and Emmett Freeman, who's going to be up in the booth very shortly. We'll see you. 32 drivers, 130 laps. Who's going to get it done at the Daytona 190? We'll see you here very soon.